Hi, good morning, and thank you for having us in this presentation. As you said, we are part of CENSAT Agua, Viva, Friends of the Earth, Colombia. Nelson and myself, we coordinate the area of energy and climate justice. And today we will like to talk about the just energy transition and the energies for dignified lives. And we would like to share between both of us about different parts of our struggles, the struggles that we face in Colombia, but also about the alternatives and the proposals that have been built by the communities and organizations at territorial level. Next, Nelson, please. We will start with a brief summary. We know everyone here is an expert and but we wanted to have a common background on the climate crisis. And then we will share more about the anti-oil struggles in Colombia and the community energies that we are working on in CENSAT Agua Viva. So about the climate crisis, as I said, you all know, you all are experts on this topic. The data show how quickly the average temperature is increasing above the pre-industrial era. The IPCC already declared that we are far away from the 1.C degrees target. And that's really scary, no? That's really scary for the planet, for the life, for the most vulnerabilized people. And we can see here the data, and this is in general the data for the last year, and how it's been continually increasing. In the next slide, we can also see where this is coming from. No? According to the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, the main sources of the main reason for this increase is the increase of the greenhouse gas emissions. This slide shows us where those emissions come from. So most of them come from the energy use in industry, in buildings, in transport. Another important part comes from agriculture, and we must say this is basically industrial agriculture, forestry, and land use. And then we have smaller parts in industry and waste. So what this shows is basically that we are talking about the ways of production and the ways of consumption and the ways of distribution that we have in our economy. And that's the main cause. So we can say here, yes, energy use in industry, in transport, or in buildings, but that if we go into detail and we can see which kind of industries and which kind of transportation and which kind of buildings, we can see that this belongs specifically to the waste that we produce, consume, and distribute. And this is not for individuals' use, but for the main industry and the main production and industrial model that we face. So that's something that we want to reflect on and think that the climate crisis is actually related to that mode of production, and that's what needs to be changed. So, and then if we look at which are the sources of those of that energy, again, this is nothing new. Those and actually, Aida was talking about the use of the extraction of different fossil fuels. We can see that most of the existing energy sources come, or the ones that we are using, come from fossil fuels. So coal, oil, and gas. But it's not only the fact that though that use is the one causing the crisis, but it's also the fact that we are going over the existing reserves of those resources. So we still have some coal, oil, and gas under the ground. But if we continue extracting, we as a collective world, I mean, continue extracting in the way that the world has been doing it in the last years, that won't be possible to keep the increase of the average temperature below the 2 degrees. And that applies not only for the existing ways of extraction, but also for the so-called non-conventional ways of extraction, which are even more complex and have even more impacts and create more environmental conflicts than the existing ones. So we can talk a lot about the energy efficiency and how these new ways, these non-conventional ways of extraction can be harmful and also don't work for satisfying the energy needs. But we wanted to focus more on the struggles that have been created by the extraction of the oil, the coal, and the gas in our country. Most of all, we will focus on the oil. So as I was saying, we have this dilemma between the energy efficiency and the fact that if we look for those non-conventional resources, we will find them, but the energy that we need to extract it is not comparable with the energy that we will obtain from that. And that's a big problem. What it means is that we need to change the way we produce, that we need to change the way we consume, instead of keep looking for new and more fossil fuels. This is another graph that shows the same idea in terms of how much energy we can find and how efficient that energy could be for the existing processes. But what we want to focus on now, if we go to the next one, is to the different impacts and the conflicts that have been created by the extraction of oil in our territory, in Colombia. So one of the main and most known conflicts was led by the Occidental Petroleum Company, who wanted to extract oil in an indigenous territory. The indigenous community is called the Agua, and this was an intention to extract, and they managed to get an initial exploration in their territory, in the Agua territory, and this community was really strong in opposing to that project, and from their point of view, from their cosmovision, it was clear that if the oil was extracted from their territory, it was the blood of the soil, so it will make impossible to continue living, and they threatened to have a collective suicide if the project continued. And with their resistance and with international and national support, that project was stopped. But it continues to be a threat, a permanent threat on our territory. We know that in Colombia we have some reservations of oil, and this is one of the main and like most remarkable examples of the struggles, but it's not the only one. And in other places, in other areas, it has been extracted, and the people have faced displacement, have faced pollution of water, of air, of their land, and that makes it impossible to continue living. And that's what we wanted to flag. It's not only we brought that Uwa story because that's an emblematic resistance, but it's not the only one. And it's in the whole territory where there is oil extraction, there are communities and organizations conflicted by that extraction and resisting to it. But also, and now we can move to the next one, that's when we talk about the conventional type of extraction. We can also share with you about coal, about gas, but those are like the so-called conventional ways of extracting hydrocarbons. And now, with the initial landscape that we were sharing with you about the reduction of the reserves and the need to go into the non-conventional reserves, another part of the territory is being explored, and we can see that in this map. And it is a lot of places that are under the mountains and that are under the threat of new extraction. So learning from the experience who have been facing these social and environmental conflicts and seeing that this unconventional extraction will lead to even more dangerous and more complicated conflicts, there is resistance against this kind of extraction in the different regions and territories, even though those are, for now, those are projects. Those are not happening yet. And with the current government, those were stopped. They were banned, but that's a temporary ban. And what we are seeing is the risk of they becoming true now with some around the political debate, and the political debate includes the need of more energy sources. So there has been a lot of mobilization at national level against this kind of extraction. People have been opposing mostly the fracking ways, the fracking extraction, but not only. And they have been exposing the kind of impacts and the kind of conflicts that can be created with different strategies. We are showing few of them. We won't go in depth into all of them, but there are different strategies and ways of resisting. And mostly it's to create public knowledge of the consequences of this kind of extraction, in terms of not only the communities and local organizations, but also for the whole country. And this has led to the creation of a national alliance, which is called we can translate it as Colombia Free of Fracking Alliance, with a lot of organizations, more than 100 organizations, including oil unions, who also rejected in 2019 the fact that the Colombian government at the time was proposing to do fracking pilot projects. There is also another way of non-conventional extraction that is being spread all over the world, including in Italy, but not only, and it is the offshore extraction. So it's to replicate the ways of extraction, but into the deep sea. And that has, we have been working on different research and analysis with the coastal communities about the impacts of this kind of extraction. Again, in Colombia, there is only one active project in the region of La Guajira, but there are plenty of projects, as you can see in this map, that have impact not only for our seas and waters, but for the Caribbean itself and for the whole ecosystem and the balance worldwide. So it's really complicated. We can talk deeply about the impacts in terms of pollution, but also in terms of earthquakes and the impacts, with this idea that the sea life is too far from people, so it won't impact. But what we have found is actually the opposite. It really impacts not only the life in the sea, but also the life in the coasts and the life in land. So as I was saying, we have been working on different research about specific territories in Colombia, and how the oil extraction and even the oil transportation has been critical for the ecosystems, for the relationship with the coastal communities, most of them fisher folks, but not only, and how they have been impacted by even the transportation or the existing infrastructure. The last research that we developed and we are about to publish is about the abandoned infrastructure of the hydrocarbons and how it remains in the sea and all the impacts that it has. And so we want to highlight and to call attention in terms of it's not only the extraction, but it's also the waste that it remains after the project is finished and how it continues polluting and destroying the ecosystems for much more years than the ones that the project was existing. So those are just like few highlights in terms of the social and environmental conflicts that are created by the existing projects and extraction in our territory, and that how that is related to the fact of the causes of the root causes of the climate crisis. But we also want to highlight that there are real solutions for those real causes, and Nelson will share more about them.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Lyda. And like she said, we have supported those struggles against those oil projects, but we also have learned a lot of several communities from Latin America that already are building a just energy transition. So the last 6 years, we made a virtual exhibition of community experiences of just energy transition, and we found 155 experiences along Latin America. We know that there are other similar maps from Brazil and Mexico, but we wanted to share to you what we found here. Most of them in our map are from Colombia because here is where we have our networks. But we know that it is a bigger picture. It is a bigger experience that we have learned, like I said before. So we want to share with you what we have learned. And this year, some of our colleagues did a research about this database, and we want to share to you two key aspects. First of them is that it is not about just to use the sunlight, but it is also about to use the water, the wind, the human labor, and mainly the biomass. So this is the first result that we want to share to you. But we also learned that it is not just about to use renewable energy, but it is also about some communities that are trying to face their own needs, that they realized that it is about food, it is about transport, it is about water access, it is about waste management, it is about their health, their education. So they are doing a lot of interesting things that we recognize because of this database. So what do we understand by community energy? And even when I say that we found 155 experiences in Latin America, we worked with something like 5 or 10 experiences here in Colombia to build an educational experience to try to teach and develop capacity building of these communities. So they have some community technical experts to create those experiences. And with them, the last 2 years, try to build also a definition about what community energy is. So we want to share to you some key aspects, because yes, it is about energy self-generation, distribution, and use. But it is not just like that. It is also that these communities have shown us that energy is a fundamental dimension for life, and it is not just for human life, but also for non-human life. And that's why they are trying to rebuild ecosystem cycles, and they are facing the climate crisis with their efforts. So they are rebuilding these ecosystem cycles, but also the social weaving, because this make them they can face the difficulties that those communities have, because those oil projects, for instance, but also because other projects that are made because this energy model. So they are building conditions for a dignified life to stay in their territories, and they recognize that they have to dispute and to transform the energy model, because they need to lead us to a just energy transition. That is what we understand by community energy, or in Spanish, energía comunitaria. And with some of these organizations is that we have worked the last 10 years to create those experiences, and not just to those experiences to be, but also to this government to recognize that this is an alternative, and this is the way that communities can guarantee that this could be a just energy transition. So the last year we achieved this, that the government recognizes energías comunitarias. So this is about what we want to share you, not just about anti-oil struggles, but also these alternatives that we are learning and creating with the communities. So thank you very much, and we will glad to hear your questions. Thank you.